In today's episode of the Pathmonk Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Josh Spilker, who is hailing over as the director of content at Range. And at Range, they're basically all about great teamwork, pure meetings, by basically helping teams, for on a remote and hybrid sort of setup to basically, figure out where everybody's up to and how to sort of manage work in async manner. So today we're going to really deep dive into Range and learn about the growth from Josh as well. So Josh, welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Lucas.
Of course. So maybe for everybody who sort of hasn't, been in touch with Range, hasn't used it, maybe a quick overview. What is Range all about in your own words?
Yeah, sure. Range is a team communication tool. So what we try to do is have a way for teams to check in asynchronously. And then we also have a meeting function to help run better meetings for better teamwork. So that includes like agenda setting, icebreaker questions, some culture building. And we also have a goal setting feature as well, purposely geared towards remote and hybrid teams, but in-house teams could use it as well.
Very cool. Very succinct. I love that. That gives a very quick overview of what you guys are doing. So what types of teams are benefiting most? You mentioned hybrid, you mentioned remote, you mentioned even more traditional teams. Is there a certain size that the company needs to have? Is there sort of, anything that, makes a company a great fit for the product?
Yeah, our primary persona is engineering teams, and I'd say product managers because they're kind of familiar with the flow of, say, daily stand-ups and such. And so what we're trying to do is replace some of those with what we call async check-ins. And that way, if you have a team on in several different countries or in just different parts of the country, they can all check in without having to call like a central like stand-up meeting. And so in addition to that, we do recognize that meetings are important. So we're trying to enhance some of those and make sure everyone has a voice, and you can also build culture even when you are kind of remote or hybrid. But yeah, our primary personas right now that we've caught on with are engineering teams, probably like 10 or more, product managers, product teams. And so those are kind of the main use cases right now.
That makes sense. Now, who you say within those organizations is typically the champion? Is it like sort of a single developer bringing in the tool? Does it come from the founders? Does it come from, C-suite, or maybe even a product manager who wants to organize everybody around them? Who's sort of bringing in the product typically?
Yeah, great question. A lot of times we do need a champion on like kind of the senior team lead, senior engineer, usually that level, somebody that does have some sway in the company, but also may just have their own little pod or team of say like 10 to 15. That usually works out well. And then we want to see, of course, growth throughout the organization. But as far as like a proof of concept, usually that size works really well. We're still ironing out a few things on, introducing it to 300 to 500 person teams, but we do have teams that size using it.
Mm-hmm. And how do these folks learn about Range? Like, what's sort of the journey looking like? Or in other words, what's sort of the key client acquisition channels that you guys leverage?
Yeah, sure. So I've only been at Range for 2 months now, since the beginning of May 2022, and I was brought in specifically to help with our organic search and using other content distribution channels to really get that going. I would say traditionally it has been more of an event like product launch type driven model. And so I've been brought in to help kind of fortify and compound some of that content and SEO work.
That makes sense. Now, how do you then think about the website sort of in the journey? And in your perspective, what role does the website play as they're getting to know and getting started with Range?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it is, I don't know if I'd call it the front door. I would say maybe like the living room, because I think people are coming to us from hopefully from organic search is what I'm working on, but some of word of mouth or some other way. So I would say that would be kind of the front door to Range, and then the website would be like the living room. But right now we're really focused on kind of more of our outreach efforts than on our website projects right now.
Okay, that makes sense. So what do you, because I mean on the website, what I was curious, I mean, did I hear you right? Are you saying you more on the outbound rather than the website, or did I hear you correctly there? Just want to make sure that my next question actually makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we are inbound motion, but what I was trying to say there is like really your first impression to Range probably comes from somewhere else, right? Not necessarily the website. So if somebody finds us in search results, or they're searching for a really what I call middle funnel, like kind of solution aware driven term,
Yeah.
that will actually be their first introduction to range, right? Is how we appear in the SERP results, or maybe you get an invite from somebody to try out range, or maybe we're running some ads on Product Hunt right now, so maybe you see it that way. That's all I mean by that. But yes, the website is our main like conversion and where people get introduced
Gotcha.
to it.
Makes sense. I got you right there. Now, you
Yeah.
as a content marketer, you obviously, produce, a lot of the experience and a lot of, what they actually read and think and see when they're on the website for the content. What do you think is sort of a major strength of the website versus where do you see room for improvement? Because we got a lot of people on the show that, there's always something to improve. Sort of, where do you see that for range? What's a strength versus a room for improvement for the page?
Yeah, so Range is a really strong, I would say, expertise, and is able to share that thought leadership really well. So we have our own interview series with kind of engineering leaders and product leaders. So we have that good baseline. One of our founders was at a senior engineer at Google. He then went on to Medium, where he met some of our other co-founders. So we do come from a very I'd say knowledgeable background, and so that has been shared really well on our website as far as interviewing leaders and expertise, but also sharing our opinions about those. Where I've been brought in is to kind of firm up some of that organic search and distribution channels for that type of content, but also to build in that conversion oriented content, whether it be like middle funnel and bottom funnel. So I'm a really big proponent of the middle funnel and developing kind of this solution aware type pieces to drive more interest in more conversions.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's interesting you're talking in sort of in the terms of the buyer's journey. It's been a sort of recurring theme on the podcast. I'm actually curious there because you're already framing it that way. We had marketers on the show that were actually, I'm taking a small tangent here. I hope you allow. With marketers on the show that were they were struggling a little bit with sort of like mid and upper funnel conversion goals on the content, right? They're getting people to there, but then bringing them to actually using the product is quite a big step, right? What's sort of your thoughts around that? Is that something you're exploring on your side as well?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the middle funnel because you have a lot of volume there to prove it out, but maybe not as high up in the funnel as far as a big volume keyword. But when you look at the middle funnel and you focus on that consideration, that solution aware, people who, in my case, are familiar with what stand-ups are, but maybe are looking for a new solution. So they're like, what is a stand-up alternative? What is a new way to do stand-ups? What's a new template for me to use for my stand-ups or other meetings? Then I know that they're solution aware, and then I can build content for that. And then what I hope to do is have like this fast follow with a direct landing page kind of within that content. So I'm a big believer in linking that mid funnel to that bottom funnel very tightly and very closely. I don't and then so that would be one thing to do. And then secondly is just like setting the proper expectations. Like I don't really expect people to convert from my top of funnel content. That's just, I know it's important. I have it there, but I look at that as a bonus. So I'm not judging my top of funnel content as conversion oriented. And so I come into that with that frame of mind is like this piece of content actually has a different goal. I don't expect bottom funnel content to get the same amount of traffic. It's nice if it does, but I know what the goal is for that. And so then I link that to more of my middle funnel post, or I run ads to it or things like that. So a lot of content marketers, I think, get tripped up with that is they have the same set of expectations for every piece of content. And it just doesn't work that way. And the same thing is I don't expect my thought leadership opinion piece to necessarily rank. I don't expect my interview series to necessarily rank for certain keywords, right? I know what the distribution channels for that, and they're going to be different. They're going to be through a newsletter. They're going to be through social, not through organic search. So that's where I think content marketers get tripped up for sure is leveraging the same metrics across every piece of content. And that's just not fair to the content marketer or to the content, to be honest.
And that makes a whole lot of sense. And it's in a way a simple framework, but actually I think you're right. Like a lot of people don't actually have a very clear categorization of what content yields which type of expectations and metrics. So that's appreciate you breaking that down. Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, since we talked about range there a little bit, we talked about the channels that you guys leveraging, about the website a bit. I would love to talk with you a little bit more about your journey as a content marketer.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious about is obviously there's tons of content on how to become a great content marketer? Like, where do you personally like to educate yourself? Like, what's sort of your go-to resources? What's the way how you push your game further?
Yeah, I content marketing and SEO sometimes get like linked or grouped together, right? And I definitely do focus more on like organic search rather than social. But I do come from a writing background. I was English major, actually have a master's in English. I came up through journalism and then I was in advertising and then kind of moved into marketing from there. So I come at it from more of the creative writing side of things rather than like a technical perspective. And so what the way I educate myself is I do read a lot more of technical type things because I kind of fill in that gap of how like people are running their SEO programs. Especially programmatic is really fascinating to me. I wouldn't be the right hire for programmatic at this point, but I'm learning more about what that means and how you stand up these pages and how to leverage that at scale. So those are type of resources I'm interested in. Do you want me to name specific specific things
It's
or is that
fine.
good?
No, it's fine. If you
Yeah,
give us a quick overview, that gives us a direction, sort of where you're heading and educating yourself. No, very cool. As we're slowly moving towards the end of the interview, I would have some rapid fire questions. They're a bit of a surprise for our guests, but they're harmless. Are
sure.
you ready for those?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get fired away with our rapid fire questions to wrap up the interview. What's the last book that you read?
Yeah, the last book I read was called Sellout by Dan Ozzie, and it was talking about punk bands from the 90s and 2000s who signed to major record labels from like kind of their indie labels. So that was the last book I read.
What's one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Meetings. We were focused on improving our meetings experience. And so that's like building agendas, kind of like our icebreaker questions and one-on-one templates is something we're focused on. So that's a big push for us right now.
Very cool. And for the very last question, I would be curious, right? If today would be your first day stepping into your career as a content marketer, what's the one advice you would give yourself?
To get solid processes in place as far as task management, project management, and having a system. Sometimes there's never a perfect system, but just having a system sometimes is better than nothing at all. So finding a system that works for you, whether it be task management, project management, and then aligning on that.
Very cool. Josh, I really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathmark Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about range, what's the one thing that they should keep in mind?
Range is great for your async check-ins and meetings.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.